as I gather, you had to, at some point in time in your career, pitch to get funding for your research.
Yeah, that's a central part of all scientific careers, if they're at all successful, is to pitch your project yourself, the relevance, the potential of your project to some funding agency. Every sort of research takes money. Salaries usually for researchers come from outside. And so you need to write grants. If they're big enough, you have to give a presentation, a site visit, something like this. So it comes up a lot. And then when you have your results, you pitch them to the scientific community through papers, giving talks, and poster sessions, things like this. So communication is critical for a scientific career.
And over your career, as I understand it, you've been involved with quite a few of these pitches. About how much money do you think have you brought in to the various organizations you worked for?
Over my career, I was originally a researcher, as you mentioned, in neurobiology, but the last 2 decades, most of what I've done has been research development, which is really an emerging field where people, often former researchers like myself, help others, faculty across at universities and researchers at private research institutions, hospitals, things like this, to get funding for their research, to put teams together, to build large interdisciplinary centers or consortia. Over those 2 decades, I've been involved in over 1,000 proposals for probably 1,100 faculty, and those have brought in $850, $900 million to date. And so these are all big team efforts, but having some research development support has been critical in a lot of them.
So $900 million? That's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, you'd think it'd go farther.
So
we still got to be doing it, right?
So what are some of the challenges that you see that when other researchers are trying to get funding?
Well, certainly there's always constraints in terms of how much time, how much space, what have you have to express the project and its value, and rules about what you have to put in there for evaluation. And so there's a lot of what I've done is try to help people respond to the prompts to answer all the questions in a way that is clear and complete, and that in and of itself is a difficulty. It can be very tricky. It's incredibly competitive these days, and that most funding agencies, you're lucky if 10 or 15% of the applications get funded. So there really is a lot of competition for that. You'd think there'd be more focus on training and communication. And then trying to express, you need to not just express what it is you want to do, but why it's exciting. And oftentimes you're going against everybody else who also thinks they're doing the most exciting thing. And so to put it not just in a way that adequately describes what you're doing and proves that, to their satisfaction that you're qualified to do it and likely to be successful, but why it's important and why it's exciting and what are the implications down the line, or potential ones, not even the things that you're going to do, but what, as I tell people, what are people going to look back and thank you for in 10 or 20 years if you're successful? And I found a lot of scientists have a lot of problem with that, that they're thinking very close to their face, what's the problem that's going to confront them tomorrow morning when they go into the lab, and that even if you ask them, what are you working on, they're more likely than not going to give you a very technical answer. They're like, I'm thinking about the rate limiting step in the CFOS transcriptional pathway, and you're like, okay, but but why are you working on that? That's the question. What happens if you figure it out? What are you going to do with it? And what is that going to enable? And so getting that across is one of the biggest efforts that we have.
What other challenges do you think, or one of the reasons why we, as scientists or engineers or technologists or innovators of any kind, run into these kinds of problems when we are trying to get funded?
Well, certainly the problems with communication. A lot of the efforts that I've worked on have been these sort of larger efforts that are usually multi-investigator and interdisciplinary. So have biologists and maybe clinicians and engineers and mathematicians and all on a team, and they all speak a different language. So getting everybody to communicate together is always a challenge. Oftentimes they don't speak each other's language, or that something means one thing to one group of people and something a little different to others. So getting over those language barriers, as it were, and real language barriers often as well, can be a hurdle. And similarly, if you're going for a very large center, 10, 20, $30 million from an agency, from the federal government, National Science Foundation, say, chances are they're going to want to have either a site visit where the program managers and the review panel members will come out to the location and have a maybe all-day interview presentation, or a reverse site visit where you go there to the NSF or the NIH or so, what have you, and do the same thing. And then they're going to be looking for how a team works together as a team, and is there synergy? That's really always very important with the big centers. Is the whole greater than the sum of the parts? Is it not just 6 interesting projects that are going on nearby each other, then they should be evaluated individually. That the big centers are supposed to be something that you need all the parts, and so that can be also a challenge, is to come across like you're a team. And so whether or not they've been working well together, they need to appear that they're going to work well together. So that's hard. And then I guess even at the next level, the most critical and the least effort and energy goes into it is to go outside of science and to make the case to Congress and the public about why scientific research is so critically important for every aspect of our life, for our economy, for healthcare, for defense, for the things that we don't know. That most of the fundamental science research that has led to the great things we have today, wireless internet and the medical breakthroughs, that it was done without knowing that that's what it would be useful for. And so to be able to present that in a way that is motivating to Congress, who have a lot of other things on their plate and are, have their own concerns and are worrying about the press and re-election and everything like that, and get them and the public on board, because still most of science is supported by public money, by tax money. So the public needs to know and understand why it's so valuable at the big picture level, how it's going to help their life, why it's worth paying taxes for.
So as an investor, whether I'm a congressman or the National Science Foundation or the Department of Defense or the National Institute of Health, ultimately everybody has a boss, and they have to justify their investment in research to their boss. And as the researcher, it helps, and I'm going to ask you this question: would it help, or does it help, or is it significant that if I can articulate what I'm researching in such a way that I give the words that a funding agent can then give to their boss, to Congress, to the national institutes, or to the taxpayer? Does that really have a value to being able to translate?
Oh, most definitely, and it's critically important, I think, and something that isn't focused on enough. That there are programs that the structure of grant applications is usually built to enable that you have a half-page public abstract that is supposed to be in lay language, that goes with almost any kind of funding application, and that's used to go higher up. and sell why this is why this is worth doing. That the NSF used to have a program called the NSF Highlights, which was a requirement. They didn't push it very hard. I kind of wish that they had, that everyone with NSF funding would actually create 3 PowerPoint slides describing their work and with different quadrants in it that explained what you were doing and why it was important and what the possible issues with it might be, and that you're supposed to make one for a technical audience, basically your peers, one for educated sort of lay audience or scientists outside of your field, or to understand why what you're doing and why it's important, but if you don't know the particular challenges in that field, and then one a completely lay language summary that could go to Congress or to the public. And they've kind of de-emphasized that, which I think is a shame, because that's the kind of thing that can be used very easily to justify research and motivate it. And just this morning, I was actually asked, I'm working on a large project to the Department of Transportation to renovate the streets around Midwest University that's getting a big Department of Homeland Security center there, and it's anticipating lots more traffic, and so there's a program to renovate the infrastructure across the country that we're applying to. And I was asked this morning to produce a 1-page document to go to the local senators and the local congressmen, so that they can talk to the Secretary of Transportation on a phone call saying, this is a great project, I urge you to support it. And so, that's kind of what you were saying, having that expressed clearly and concisely in just a few sentences and a few pictures, that it can, on a brief phone call between Congress members and the Secretary of Transportation, neither of which had heard of the project before they got this paper, but they can, campaign for it. That's could make a difference, when it gets down to the decisions for these big, $17 million investment.